verse or chorus, and I'll tell you which is which. And then I'll tell you that this form is called an octastitch. I'm pants at reading music, and I don't have perfect pitch. But when it comes to writing songs, I've got to scratch that itch. HFO goes live on air, we all expect a glitch. 'Cause every show I do, I know that I will find a hitch. I'm not expecting what I do to ever make me rich. I'm having fun with making music here right now with you on Twitch. Good evening once again. Riaka Music says, were you having sound issues earlier? Yep. I have no monitoring in OBS. I am not sure what's happening because I thought I'd fix that. And yeah, the tale of the audio interface continues. So we'll cover that in a little bit. But how are we all? Good evening to Array of Emotions. Good evening to Riako Music over there in Belgium. I hope you're well. I hope you're doing okay. I hope the weather's kind. It's absolutely gorgeous out here. Look, that's sunlight in the HFO studio. How does that happen? It's getting on for summertime. And Riaka Music says, we're doing fine, drawing art for VPC. Excellent. Yeah, I got fan mail from one of my fellow formers for my illustration foo this week, which was rather nice. Nadine had seen my stuff on my website and was going, you're an illustrator. I was like, yeah. But Array of Emotion says, oh, weather has been bad here today. I think you're probably getting the weather that I've had here yesterday and the day before, because when it was raining yesterday, the rain was bouncing and it was clattering off the windows. Something chronic. But I've had a fairly decent week creatively. I have got over the block that was bugging me with the track called Old Habits. And I uploaded the same piece of music that triggered the copyright strike on YouTube again on the last upload to YouTube. And YouTube went, yeah, it's fine. That audio interface is still bugging me. It's still been doing the bit crushy fizzy noise thing, even rolling the drivers back to 4.82. So wasn't the driver that was the problem. I had a deeper look into my system and ran such software as Latency Monitor, which is a thing. And it was saying, to start with, yeah, you're fine doing high definition audio, and then went, ooh, maybe you're not. So there is, it's actually a Windows internal driver that was giving me a lot of page fault issues and all sorts of stuff Latency Monitor was not happy with. So I went through my registry, and the registry still has an awful lot, or had an awful lot of entries for my Focusrite USB interface, which was the interface that I haven't been using since last summer. So let's get into the music. 16 layers of guitar now, considerably more synth, like 4 tracks rather than 2. And yeah, a whole bunch of other stuff has been added. So once again, I will just play you the new version. It's kind of a bit different, and see what you think. So this is, he said, looking for the right control. This is called Bad Habits.
I'm in a rut, and I'm getting old. No ifs or buts. This leaves me cold. I've gotta make the cut. And make it bold. Good production. Not even close. I need reduction. I'm too verbose. More deconstruction. Less grandiose. To become outstanding, you must be standing out, doing what you've always done. Expecting things to change is not just being dumb, it's being downright strange. Set your old habits free to die. Free expression is what makes us thrive. Make this concession to keep your sound alive. Find a new progression. Ditch the 1-4-5. To become outstanding, you must be standing out, doing what you've always done. Expecting things to change is not just being dumb, it's being downright strange. Set your old habits free to die.
So yeah, what the hell was that? That was the buzz on that appeared to be when this complete control track kicked in. So again, that's loading stuff off my D drive, which is one of my 5400, 5200 RPM drives. And frankly, I'm beginning to think it's not up to the task. The CPU flag kicking off. I mean, all right, yeah, there are 16 layers of guitar, and there's quite a few vocal tracks, and there's a whole load of effects, which are just me going, ha! But I mean, come on, that's not that many tracks. 36, 37, 38. There's less than 40 tracks in that. I mean, it's not exactly pushing boundaries, and there aren't even that many synth files going on. It's mainly audio. So, yeah, I'm more than a little peeved by the performance of this machine at the moment, which should not be laggardly to this extent, he said, as if he knew what he was talking about. But yeah, you and breathe. So yeah, from that being a track that was really, really bugging me, as going, oh, I should just bin this and just move on to something else. I've ended up producing something that, yeah, I kind of like that. The needed strings, needed orchestra. So there's what are the strings on it? I think it's intimate strings that I ended up using, or was it something else? But this complete control wrapper, yeah, it was the full Abbey Road 1 orchestra, because full orchestra. Yeah, I'm not exactly pushing things with that, am I, really? But apparently the system thinks that I am. So Reactor Music says, it's good, I like the changes. Thank you. Yes, so do I. And yeah, rather pleased with how that turned out. Although it's nothing like how it started out. And no, I'm not going to play you the original version, because that was what triggered the copyright flag on YouTube, and we're not going there. But yeah, lots of guitars. I have now moved on from 3-part harmonies. There are now significantly more than 3-part harmonies on this. So at the play out, there are in fact 6-part harmonies, and there's a shouty fuzz guitar solo going over the end of it. So yeah, like this. Which I kind of quite like. It's weird. It's a very, very intuitive thing, creating the harmonies there. I do one and then just sort of usually do the lowest harmony, and then end up just listening to it and going, oh yeah, well, the harmony to that is this. There's no sort of conscious thought or figuring out what's going on. It is literally just seat of the pants, just winging it and figuring out what it should sound like. So I didn't quite get it there, but it's good enough for government work. And I've been doing quite a lot of those sort of big harmony parts over the last month or so, as you may have noticed. And that will not be the last set of harmony guitars that we hear this evening. But yeah, I do this thing. I've got a little MP3 player. I put my headphones on, so I'm listening to it in a completely different context rather than here with the monitors. I put the headphones on and listened to it, and there was just a sort of synth noise that came at the right point that I thought, oh, serendipity, I like that. I'm going to emphasize that. So the way I emphasized it was that I added these 4 vocal effects breaths. So if I mute this submix, see if you can hear the little synth bleep that kicks in just after the end of the vocals.
And make it bold.
You hear it? I think it might actually not be a synth. I think it might be just a random drum hit and the humanization thing on Superior Drummer. But I like that noise. So what I did was that I added a whole bunch of me just grunting. And of course drowned in supermassive reverb, but it's minus 19 dB in the mix, so it's really buried at the back. So when you hear the whole thing, up and down.
And make it bold. Good production.
And just in the spirit of scientific experimentation, let's just run the bit that really, really upset Ableton just now and see if it does it again.
Less grandiose. To become outstanding, you must be standing out.
And it works fine. So it's these things, the really irritating computer faults are the ones that you can't reliably repeat, because sometimes they happen and then sometimes they don't happen, and then the next time they happen, they don't happen at the same place that they happened last time. And it has been driving me nuts, as you can tell, as I've been getting rather animated by this. But yeah, Supermassive. Ryako Music says, hey, what's your favourite Supermassive setting? I can never figure out which one to use. My template, it is so much of a favourite setting, is the C-beams. So Valhalla Supermassive, for anybody watching who is not aware of my deep and long-lasting love for Valhalla DSP and their free VST plugins, of which Supermassive is one. Supermassive is a modulated reverb / delay wondrous machine, and it has a whole bunch of presets in it. You can tweak them. So there are echoes, there's modulation, but it's the reverb settings. The reverbs are where it's key for my template. And they come in 4 flavors. They come in small, medium, large, and massive. Yeah, they're all science fiction references. So Benson, Arizona was the theme tune to John Carpenter's Dark Star. Billions and Billions is a Carl Sagan reference. But my favourite is C-beams. And all right, it's spelt wrong, but I've seen C-beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. So it's nice to see Rutger being commemorated in a preset in an audio DSP. But it is a glorious preset, and if you really crank it up, it's big enough to be significant, but it's not overbearing in the way that things like the Benson, Arizona and the Billions and Billions are. They're good, they have their applications, but I know with C-beams that I can just drop it on a track fairly low in the mix, not hugely prominent, and it just gives that little special sauce. And I've watched instructional videos on reverb, and they usually say you can go over the top with reverb. You should only apply reverb up to the point where it becomes discernible, and then you should just step it back a bit so that it is no longer discernible. To which I say, poppycock. It's a colour. It's a flavour. It's a spice. If your track requires significant amount of reverb, then drop it in. But it's all about contrast. If you have humongous amounts of reverb drooling over everything, it's just all going to blur about. So you want something that's really dry, in other words, doesn't have reverb on it at all, to show the contrast. So that's why the drums in here, all right, yes, I'm using gated reverb, but the gated reverb only kicks in on some aspects of the drums. And it's an electronic kit, and a lot of the drums are very, very intense, very, very instantaneous and totally dry. So if I just pick a bit at random and play you the drums soloed with the gated reverb, you can hear what I mean. So you've got that nice wash from the kick drum, but a lot of the hi-hats and everything else are just like sparks, instantaneous little bursts of totally dry sound that do not disappear off into the reverb. And I like the contrast. So that's kind of how I do things. So yeah, just trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to talk about this track. There's not really an awful lot more to it than that, and we've already discussed it like 3 times so far. So I think we'll move on, and I will move on. And Nick's not here, is he? If Mike Tango Charlie turns up, I'm going to save the track that I have done for Mike Tango Charlie's challenge, which he issued to me last time, which was, can you write a song that's 2 seconds long? To which the answer is, hell yes, I can. But I'll talk you through that when and if we get a stream with Mike Tango Charlie. So instead of that one, I'm going to move on to the track that I've been doing today. Arrive Emotion says, did you do a cover of Napalm Death's You Suffer? It wasn't quite that heavy, but there are, I think there's 3 tracks of guitars and drums and 3 or 4 tracks of vocals for like a 2-second song. Yeah. So what I've done instead today has been fairly more restrained. And look, that CPU meter's kicking off again. And I'm not even playing you anything, which is a bit concerning. So there is definitely something. I'm wondering whether I just strip out my NVIDIA drivers and just use, because I mean, it's not as if I'm using high-end graphics processing on this, other than when I dick around with Blender. But I mean, that's like a hobby. Should not be running this system that high, surely. It's an Intel i9 9900. It's got 64 gigabytes of RAM on it. What is going on? Who knows? Anyway, this track, I was sort of lying in bed last night thinking, I've got one track called Contemplation and one track called Consolidation. And I like doing things in threes because I like doing things in threes. And I thought, I'll do another track that begins with C and ends in Asian. And thought of one last night, and Muggins didn't follow his own advice, did he? So Muggins didn't write down his idea last night. All right, it was 1:30 in the morning and I was kind of half asleep. But today I kind of put together what I thought the idea was that I'd had last night. Whether it is actually the idea I had last night, who knows? But I ended up settling on the title of Confabulation. And I just had this, the first two lines, which actually became lines 3 and 4 on this track, was something along the lines of, you can seek solace in religion or you can lose it all in drugs. And it's like, oh, that's a bit edgy for me. You know, Mr. White Bread wouldn't say boo to a goose, has never smoked HFO. So it was like, okay, well, if I'm using that line, where's the rabbit hole going to take me? And the rabbit hole, indeed, took me to this. So this is called Confabulation.
If you don't win a competition, you might take it with a shrug. Seek solace in religion, or lose it all in drugs. If you have things you do to guarantee success, I have some news for you that might cause you distress. You cannot guarantee an outcome based on chance. The link you think you see is purely circumstance. Our minds have got a tendency to link what's unconnected. We think we see dependency when none can be detected. If you have things you do to guarantee success, I have some news for you that might cause you distress. You cannot guarantee an outcome based on chance. The link you think you see is purely circumstance. When you are just beginning, everything is hard. Put simply, perhaps winning wasn't on the cards. Try being maledictory, the result will be the same. 'Cause what you need for victory is play a better game. If you have things you do to guarantee success, I have some news for you that might cause you distress. You cannot guarantee an outcome based on chance. The link you think you see is purely circumstance.
So that's Confabulation. So that's the 15th track that I've done so far during the 5090, the prequel 2021 songwriting challenge, where you have to write 50 songs in the 90 days between the 4th of April and the 3rd of July. And then on the 4th of July, I start doing the songwriting challenge known as 50/90, where you write 50 songs in the 90 days between the 4th of July and the 1st of October. I like it, says Mike Chango Charlie. Thank you. As Riako Music has been encouraging me to work harder at me vocals. And I stood up for all the vocals in this, and as Riako Music observed, they sound better and more energetic. The barbershop, 2 barbershop quartets in this, right? So the bridge, I did a few sort of stabs at it, and then thought, you know what? I'm just going to be really silly and just do... or try and do proper harmonies. And, well, judge for yourself. This is me doing barbershop quartet times 2.
When you are just beginning, everything is hard. Put simply, perhaps winning wasn't on the cards.
So it's a bit wonky, but that's, I've not tried doing barbershop quartet singing before. I even doing a single descant line on vocals is kind of way out of my comfort zone. But I thought, look, you can do the bloody thing on a guitar pretty much without blinking. So why can't you do it vocal-wise? To which the answer is, yeah, I've been playing guitar for 45 years. I haven't been singing for 45 years. There's a difference, right? But I'll take those vocals. I'm quite chuffed with those. If anybody's interested, that's my vocal chain. So as always, I've been using the Rode, which I'm pointing at and you can't see. So if we go to Shelf Cam, been using that thing. In fact, you can't even see it on Shelf Cam, so which is kind of ridiculous, really. So let's go to Studio Cam, shall we? I'm just randomly picking cameras. So it's this thing here. So it's a nice large diaphragm condenser microphone. It's rather spiffy. Rode NT1A. Lovely thing. And unlike this, which I tend to sit on top of because I like the sound that it gets when I sit on top of it, I could literally use the Rode there from this position. And I was singing more loudly, so I just hope the neighbours weren't in, because given mistakes, I probably recorded the chorus at least 20 times. So if anybody out there in next door's garden was listening, they'd be going, what is he trying to do? Why can't he just settle with that version? It's like, because multi-track, because lots of harmonies. And yeah, no synths whatsoever. How did that happen? I've got all these lovely synthesizer plugins and the bleepy landfill totems goodness that I was demonstrating on last week's show. And the G6 multi-effects unit that I got this month has been casting its spell, and I've been absolutely loving just playing guitar with it. So basic way the track was put together, drum beat, and it's just Superior Drummer. The drum MIDI I was using was from that one, Songwriters Pack 2. So you literally just buy it as a plug-in. They're like €10 or so, €20 I think, from the Toontrack site. And there's a whole bunch of 6/8 and 4/8 in different tempos. You get ballads and everything else. And there was just a rather nice West Coast upbeat 132 beats per minute MIDI track, and I pushed that, so I'm running this at 145 BPM. But there are some lovely, I mean, the basic drum track is and yeah, gated drums makes all the difference. Listen to what happens if I turn the gated reverb off. It just goes, oh. And in fact, we'll even turn drum bus off. And Mel, if you're not using drum bus yet, you need to start using drum bus, which was introduced on Ableton Live 10 and has been tweaked a bit in Ableton Live 11. But if I turn off the gated reverb, turn off drum bus, this is exactly the same drum pattern played from exactly the same sound source. Where'd it go? Turn on drum bus. And it's the transient shaping enhance preset that works for me. And then you turn the gated reverb on and suddenly magic happens. Simples. So yeah, gated reverb, for those who wonder about such things. You take the audio out of the Superior Drummer track and you feed it into an audio track on which you drop, well, in this case, Ableton's medium dark plate reverb. So it's a reverb with quite a long tail on it. But you gate it so that when the tail drops below a certain value, the noise gate cuts it off completely. And you have to tweak the threshold so that you get the behavior. So the threshold, this dial here, and you basically, if I play it, you want the, see where the threshold is. See? Just sitting on the very
You
top.
don't win.
So it's not triggering the reverb all the time. And Ryako Music says, I've started using Arturia Pigments. I saw that in your live set for the track that you were working last night. Hope you're enjoying it. Oh, that was one thing I wanted to ask. Did you figure out what was causing the whining noise coming out of your monitors? Because I need to know that that's been sorted, because I've been worrying about such things because they're not good. You should not have buzzes and crackles and horrible noises coming out of your monitors, he said, looking pointedly at his Complete Audio 6 Mark II audio interface, which is still playing up. I haven't tackled it yet. I've been busy, says Ryako Music. Well, fingers crossed that you get it sorted anyway. So yeah, that I again, 4-part guitar harmonies, because 4-part guitar harmonies are my jam these days. And yeah, slightly less distorted sound, reminiscent of a certain 30-watt valve combo made in the United Kingdom in the 1960s. Yeah, it's the G6's stab at a Vox AC30, which is kind of the Brian May sound with more distortion, but roll off the distortion, roll off the gain, and it still sounds rather nice. And I could do that all day. I just find doing those sort of guitar parts intensely satisfying. I can see why Brian May does them a lot, because I mean he's a huge influence in what I do in terms of harmony guitar. I mean, come on, he pretty much wrote the book in terms of that sort of style of harmony guitar in rock. And Vox AC30, of course I'm going to want to sound like Brian, so I rather like that. The bass, very, very basic. I'm just using Bass Rider and then the SSL 4000E channel strip, which is my template default on all the submixes that I use within Ableton. I'm using a preset that was done by Chenzo Townsend, which is basically just a high watt bass, and that really boosts the low end at about 100. Well, you can see at about 100 hertz. In fact, it's lower than 100 hertz at about 50 hertz, although it's using a bell for the cue, so it sort of distributes it quite nicely. So if I turn off the SSL channel strip and just solo the bass, and then we'll drop the channel strip in, you can see what a difference having that SSL 4000D channel strip makes. Or actually you probably won't hear it, because I've just realised that I've dropped a significant amount of compression on my Zoom Q8, which is probably why some of these demos you're sitting there going, well, I just can't tell the difference. And that's why. So it's not that I don't know what I'm doing, although I don't know what I'm doing half the time. It's just that I'm doing post-processing within OBS Studio after the sound has come out of Ableton, gone into my Mackie Big Knob Studio controller, and then been shunted into this little thing here. So that's how I'm getting past the latency issue with Ableton, because a lot of people who use OBS and use things like Ableton to create audio, Ableton uses ASIO drivers and OBS doesn't. And you can get around it by adding another program to the increasing roster of software that you have to install on your machine to use live streaming setups like Voicemeeter or other sound bridge programs are available, but I just kludged it. So it is literally a pair of cables going into the XLR inputs in the back of my Zoom Q8, which is, I mean, I bought it as a camcorder. It's been stuck on that microphone stand as a webcam and in here for my studio settings since I started doing this and figured out how to get the sound to work properly. And it doesn't add any latency to the audio that I'm producing in here, which I don't think software solutions would do. It's a hell of a kludge, and I will be the first to put my hand up and admit that, but it works for me, even though what is really irritating is that the drivers for this camera only allow streaming at 720p, which to start with, for the first 6 months or so that I was doing streams, I was just streaming in 720p because I was doing Wi-Fi from the studio in here, and my Wi-Fi card was using 2.4 gigahertz. It was 802.11.n wireless standard, so it was years out of date, and I couldn't get the bandwidth to actually stream in full HD from here. But touch wood, that is not the case anymore. So here we are. There you go, 1080p. So, yes, that was a track called Confabulation, which I literally finished mixing about half an hour before the show started. Ryako Music says, I used the guitar Basio for Ob's thing and it worked great. That is fantastic. I may actually use that myself. So, yeah, if I do that, that means I can free up the Q8 as actually using it as a camcorder again. But it also means that I can then set up another webcam in here for Studio Cam for being 1080p rather than dropping to 720p when I switch to Studio Cam, as happens at the moment. But yeah, Ableton, strangely enough, loaded this track considerably faster than the other tracks that I will be or have been playing to you tonight. Heads up, Mike Tango Charlie. This one is for you. As you challenged me last week, you said, can you write a 2-second song? So it's like, yes. So, first things first, maths. Yes, maths was involved. Because I sat down and think, okay, well, we'll ignore the counting. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 counting. So what am I gonna kind of get away with in terms of saying it's a song rather than a single bar of music, which kind of isn't a song. So it's like, okay, I want 4 bars. 4 bars of 4/4, because we're not going to do proggy 11/8 or anything like that. So 4 bars of 4/4, that's 16 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's about 8 beats to the second, right? So 8 times 60 is 480. So there's my BPM, or beats per minute. And I don't think I've ever written anything above about 300 beats per minute before. And I put together some drums in Superior Drummer 3, and I think I kind of selected a half-time beat, if I remember correctly. Did I? Because 480 beats to the minute is kind of, you know, that's Morgan Argren, black metal, speed metal, thrash type things. Yeah, Basic Rock, half time. There you go. So Basic Rock is one of these MIDI add-on packs for Easy Drummer, Superior Drummer. It's literally just a bunch of MIDI files that you can buy. And so we got half time, straight 4/4, pieces 132 BPM. And that was the verse. And yeah, it comes over a bit fast. And because it's half time, it's not insanely fast. Whereas some of the other tracks, because Superior Drummer will play all of these drum loops at the set's native BPM. Some of them sound a little bit over the top. So let's not go there. So yeah, I recorded a bass line and listened to it, and because of the decay on the cymbals, right, it was like, this sort of cymbal decays as long as the song is. So how can I fix this? I know, I'll up the BPM. So yeah, I eventually settled on a song which is 520 beats per minute. Yeah. And in the spirit of Napalm Death and in the spirit of Sex Bob Om and all those other 2-second songs, this, and do we want the, yeah, we want the counting really. I think we'll leave the counting in because it's really just as silly. So this is called No Time Like the Present. No time like the present. Hey. There you go. Want to hear it again? Just to savour it. Let's take the counting out this time, right? So this is purely the song, 2 seconds long song, and this is called No Time Like the Present. No time like the present. Hey. And you can hear that hi-hat tailing off. Do it again. No time like the present. Hey. And once more for luck. Mike Tango Charlie says, I'm going to have to hear that again. No time like the present. Hey. So yeah, 2 second song. There's 3 tracks of guitars. There's 4 tracks of vocals and drums and a bass guitar. All for 2 seconds of sheer lunacy. No time like the present. Hey. Extra points for the title, says Mike Tango Charlie. Glad you liked it, sir. So yeah, Mayhem. You should definitely enter into the Battle of the Bands. Yeah, the trouble is I have to clone myself. This is the difficult thing about being me, is that there's just me. And it is very difficult to reproduce all this sort of stuff in a performance environment. Believe me, I would love to be able to do it. You could put that on repeat forever, says Ryako Music. I think it would probably grate after about the first 20 minutes, which would be quite a lot. I'm not going to do the maths. It would be a lot of repeats. But yeah, I got my metal head on for that one, really, didn't I? So I was quite pleased with that. And thank you once again to Mike Tango Charlie for issuing me such an entertaining challenge, because I really did like seeing where that led me, and it led me down a very, very entertaining rabbit hole, and maths, really. So pretty sure that Crash and the Boys got a count into their 2 second song, so I'll allow it, says Mike Tango Charlie. Okay, we'll keep the 2 second. We'll keep the counting. So it's in the file. I didn't save the changes that I made. So, not content with playing you 3 pieces of music that I've done or finished off since Sunday's show, I've been a very, very busy bee getting past the block that I had with old habits. Kind of got me my mojo back, and my mojo, quite frankly, has been coming and going like transitions were going out of fashion this last couple of weeks. It's mainly health stuff, and yeah, I'm at the point where it actually hurts to get out of bed in the mornings. So some days it takes me a long time to just do something as simple as get out of bed in the mornings. But I am trying very hard to be optimistic. I am trying very hard to be positive. And I am just trying to just do stuff that makes me feel good and hopefully makes other people feel good. Mike Tango Charlie says, let me know when this is available on Bandcamp. Stay tuned. I have something for you. So, yeah, I performed for, and there's me saying I don't do online performing. It just doesn't happen. That's not really my thing. Wobby is one of the few people who can actually talk me into performing on a stage or in a virtual environment. The other person who can do that is our chat person, Ryako Music, who has actually got me up on stage in a pub doing proper playing with other people, as has Wobby actually. But it's not something that I feel I can do justice, because if I go to like this track, there are 15 tracks on it, right? So that means that there have to be 15 versions of me available to fill in all the details for this piece of music. And I've only got one guitar effects pedal and everything else, so it's kind of folding space, and we have just folded space from X. Many machines on X. Oh, yes. Oh, I love that dialogue. I love that scene. Yes. Reactor Music says, I'm bossy. You're not bossy. You're just, you bring the best out of people, which is why you are kicking major butt on the VPC challenge this year. But yeah, I did a thing for Wobby's National Epitaph Day, which was one of her Facebook cabaret live things being done on Facebook earlier last month, and wrote a thing which was just about epitaphs and playing with the idea of the different epitaphs of prime ministers in Westminster Abbey and yada, yada, yada. And yeah, the track's called Epitaph, and I played it you on an earlier incidence of this stream. But kind of got me thinking about what we leave behind. Strangely enough, you know, what is the sort of legacy that I want to aim for in terms of what I do? I'm not going to introduce a fantastic new groundbreaking technique in instructional design. I'm not even going to make a million-selling album or anything like that. But it got me thinking about, well, yeah, what are the sort of issues involved in contemplating your epitaph? Because I'm old, I'm ill. And yeah, you do occasionally start or I certainly start thinking about mortality and the fact that it's like, well, how many more February album writing months am I actually going to be around for? And hopefully it will be a lot, but I don't know. So with that, a rather sort of melancholy frame of mind, I wrote a song called, well, rather than What I Will Leave Behind, I flipped it, right? So this is called What You Leave Behind. So it's me encouraging other people to contemplate their own mortality, and I bet they love me for it. So yeah, take a look. This is me going full on Gilmore, it has to be said. And intentionally so.
As you race towards the finish, mortality becomes a thing. Your opportunities diminish. To throw your hat the ring. What do you have in mind? day you must decide what others think your life has meant. Will history cast you aside? Or are you going to leave a dent? What do you have in mind? Or what you leave behind? Will you take a final bow and simply saunter off the stage? Or leave us marveling at how your part kept leaping off the page? What happens afterwards, unknown. But if an afterlife exists, will you be happy to be shown just how your legacy persists? What do you have in mind for what you leave behind? Will you take a final bow and simply saunter off the stage? Or leave us marveling at how your part kept leaping off the page?
So that was just finish that playing. What you leave behind, and as said in the chat, I really went for the Pink Floyd vibe in a big way. But surprisingly enough, I didn't use my sort of Dave Gilmour Strat type G&L S500 because I think I've worn out the strings. I only restrung it in February, so I think it needs new strings. So this was the guitar that I used. So this is my Jackson Sandemus. Yes, that's what they call their guitars rather than Strats. They call them the Jackson SDX or Sandemus, and As you can see there, it's got a little signature on it because this one's the Adrian Smith Jackson San Dimas. And yeah, the noise that I got was... Let's use a pick rather than my fingers, so it's... Ping pong delay. There's excuse me. So there's the G6, which is my enormous new guitar multi-effects pedal. That's going into a Moore Ocean machine, which is heavily adding ping pong delay on it, and I just love the tone using the neck pickup, which is that pickup there, rather than the humbucker on the bridge, because it gives it that slightly sort of mellower tone. And because it's got a Floyd Rose ridiculous tremolo on it and the locking nuts on it, it tends to stay in tune. And the strings on this have actually been on this for about 6 months, which is a lot longer than they last on other guitars that I have. And I am sure more fun will be had playing guitar in the coming months. So yeah, let's go back to this. So what else have we? Yeah, one thing I will say, that guitar performance up until that point there, so up until the closing stretches of the final chorus, was one take. Yep, I did the whole thing in pretty well. There's that bit there and that bit there, so 3 takes, all from start to finish, and that's 5.5 minutes of playing. And if I solo it, I mean, it's just me noodling. Well, no, let's go through this in the order that I constructed it. So once again, started with the drums. So the drums, it's the New York volume. What volume is it? Volume 1. Add-on MIDI pack in Superior Drummer, which is kind of, New York studio session type drums. So it's got a really nice feel to it. It's slower. It's less than 100 BPM. In fact, it's 93 BPM. And the drums just gave me the vibe, really. Can you hear the shuffle? So if you've not come across the Purdy shuffle, it's those ghost notes. So you don't just go biff, smack, biff, smack. That is not what is going on here. If I show you the MIDI and actually zoom in on it, you can see just how much of little tiny little grace notes are taking place in the drums. And if I open the MIDI information, you can also see just how varied the touch is on. This is velocity information at the bottom here. So it is very, very subtle, very, very complex. If you look at where the beats are, they're not on the grid. Look, if I zoom in, look at that. See, it's just not quite on the grid in a lot of cases. And that just gives it that glorious real drummer feel. And if I play it through, you can see what's happening. Where are the hi-hats? So once I'd got the drum beat going, I went to bass, and the bass once again is my trusty Ibanez RG9 9-string that I bought for doing djent and sort of metal guitars, and I spent the first year doing djenty type stuff and metal guitars in it. But it's got such a glorious sound as a bass guitar that I've just been using it as a bass guitar. I mean, just listen to the... And yeah, there's heavy chorus on that. So what am I doing on this? I'm using the Waves Bass Rider to just tame the dynamics. In fact, I'm using the clean and dynamic preset. So all Bass Rider does, there's a thing when producers used to do this by hand, they called it riding the faders. And if an instrument got too loud, they'd literally just slide the faders down on the mixer. So the mixer here has these slidey things, and you can literally slide them. So up is more volume and down is less volume. And producers used to literally just listen to what an instrument was doing, and they'd go, oh, he's gone quiet now. So they'd move the fader up. And then when the bass player got enthusiastic and got loud again, they go, oh, he's too loud again. And they'd pull the faders back down. And thank God, these days there is stuff called automation. So if you do that, most big studio mixing desks will remember what you did and will then do it on playback the next time without you needing to actually move that fader. But the Waves plugin takes it a step further and actually listens while it's happening and goes, yeah, do it like that. And you can actually trigger this so that it will write to the automation track, which means that when you're happy with what the bass rider's done, you just write it to the track. I haven't bothered doing it here. And then you can just delete the plugin because the automation stays. So great way of saving processing power, which I noticed the CPU meter was flagging up again, which is kind of concerning me. So, yes, Mel, the chorus on this is the Mondo mod. I stuck it on medium chorus, and even though it says medium, it's pretty full on, you have to say. But I just love what chorus does to a bass, even more than a flanger. And they're all basically, choruses and flangers work the same way. They delay the audio signal slightly so that you have two copies of the audio signal and one is slightly displaced in time. And depending on how displaced in time you get the two signals, you either get the chorus effect or the flanger effect or the phaser effect. And so, yeah, I had drums and I had that bass track. And I'd also, unusually for me, and it worked well, so I kind of think I need to do it more often, I'd actually got the lyrics for the track written in advance of even sitting down and putting the drum track together. So I knew the story I was going to tell. I knew the sort of atmosphere that I was going to get. I knew the sort of structure I was going to need. And then it was just a case of ignoring that completely and just pretending to be David Gilmour for 5 minutes. And yeah, rather pleased with the guitar sound on this. It's just bliss being able to pull a sound like that out of just a piece of wood and some bits of metal. It's just one of the most satisfying things I think I am able to do in this little room. And yet, not only is the Moore Ocean machine, which is cranked up. So the Moore Ocean machine is basically a little foot pedal that was designed for Devin Townsend by the Chinese effects pedal company Moore. And it's basically not just an effects pedal, or not just an echo pedal. It's two echo pedals and a reverb pedal, all in one box. And quite an extraordinary piece of kit, although not entirely reliable, because I am on my second. So the first one is here with a nice picture of Heavy Devi himself on it. And yeah, my first one died. But the nice people at Strings and Things did offer me a very good deal on a replacement. So I availed myself of that. And hopefully this version that I'm using now will last a bit longer than the version that died. But Wills Robbins says, is this going to be released? I think I would be willing to pay for this. Stay tuned. So, yeah, lots of guitar. As I say, up until the 3 minutes 50 mark, that was one take. And then see if you can spot the take, because I'm getting pretty good at stitching takes together. Did you spot it? I'll play it you again and I'll zoom in so you can actually see the edit point. And here's the next edit. Mad skills or what? I'm there are days when I actually sound like I know what I'm doing in here. But it is a question of, rather than just pressing record and starting playing immediately, you use the little loop brace up at the top there, this thing, because if you set a punch in and a punch out point, you start playing along with what you recorded last time and keep doing it. And if you duplicate it closely enough, then the effects do what they did the last time, only you just play something different once you've started punching in. And yeah, it's taken me a while to get to the point where you can't actually hear where the edit is, but you can't hear where the edit is on that. Then vocals, again, fairly standard chain. Found in recent tracks that I was using the OTT free compressor for vocals, and it wasn't what this track needed, so I actually only use compression in. So there's RX7's Isotopes mouth D-click thing to get rid of voice noise, mouth noise, lip smack, all that sort of stuff. Isotopes Nectar 3, which is their secret sauce vocal processor, and that's a whole chain of different effects in a single wrapper. So there's pitch correction there, which you'll notice is turned off. Never use it. Hate what it does to my vocals. So I never, only in very, very extreme circumstances will I turn on pitch correction for any of my vocals. But there's a noise gate, so that when I step back and take a breath, that doesn't get triggered in the sound that you hear in the final mix. So if I solo the vocals,
mortality becomes a thing,
and turn the gate off,
your opportunities diminish. To throw your hat into the ring.
there's not a lot of voice noise or background studio noise going on there, but there is some, so the gate gets rid of it. Then there's a bit of equalization. I take everything off the bottom end with a high pass filter. There's a little bit of a lift at about 200-300 hertz, and then I roll everything off at the top end. There's a de-esser, which is a way of removing sibilance in your voice. In fact, right now, the mic feed that I'm using to talk to you has a little red box working on it very, very hard, which is doing a bit of compression. It's basically doing this, but I do it then again when I'm actually doing the vocals. But the mic mechanic that I've got down here does a bit of de-essing, does a bit of compression, and it does a number of other tweaks, and it will even do pitch correction and stuff. But again, I have it turned off. But if I stamp on it, it does let me do
Wedding DJ voice,
which is always useful. Another set of equalization just to give a bit of presence and air. More compression, not an awful lot. What's the ratio? Oh, the ratio is a lot. The ratio is 10:1. And then a tiny, tiny bit of reverb, but the mix is like 14%. And then that goes into Chris Lord Alge's epic double reverb echo unit, which I've got on a Waves plugin sale about 3 or 4 months ago, and started using it last month and thought, ooh, I like this. But again, never have reverb on vocals above a 30% mix. So it's actually quite high here at 28.9, but in most cases I'll normally have a reverb down at less than 20%. So as I was saying much earlier, you can barely hear the effect. And there's a tape delay and a plate reverb, and it just gives a bit more presence to my vocals, which my vocals need from time to time. And then once again, because it's a submix, I'm using the Wave Solid State Logic SSL 4000D plugin strip, and this one is lead vocals setting, which basically just guts the low end and boosts the mids and also the high mids. And I like what I like what most of the vocal presets actually do on the SSL strip. So I've been using them pretty much on all my vocals. And surprisingly little vocals. One set of vocals for the verse, and I have to say this is first take all the way through. And this is, remember what I was saying earlier about using the Rode NT1A and standing up and doing my vocals, and because I'm standing up I treated it as a performance, and I think you can hear it in the vocals.
What happens afterwards, unknown. But if an afterlife exists, will you be happy to be shown just how your legacy persists?
So, I'm not the most rock solid of singers when it comes to pitch, but with that backing and that processing, who gives a damn? It sounds fine to me. So I am going to take that as a win. Reactor Music says, I'm still getting used to using that thing. It's just practice, just experiment, see what these things do. Turn them up ridiculously loud and see if you like the effects, and if you don't, then turn them down again. And has to be said, there are a lot of very, very good YouTube instructional videos on all of these things. So there we have it. That was What You Leave Behind. So with that, I've done now 15 songs for 5090, the prequel. So I'm a little bit behind the curve in terms of writing 50 songs in 90 days, but I am not that far behind the curve. And quite frankly, I've astonished myself by the level of stuff that I've created over the last month. Because normally there will be, I'll normally, well, in past years, I've usually had 3-4 tracks out of 20 or so that I think, you know what, that's not bad at all. That's a keeper. But this month, really, I am totally happy of going, right, hello world, here's everything that I've done this month. And I do mean everything that I've done this month. And so that's what I'm going to do. So Mike Tango Charlie said, well, where can I download that so I can listen to it again when I did my 2-second song? And Wills Robin, bless him, said, oh, I'd quite like to listen to this again. Well, now's your chance, because forthwith I shall just click on this button here which says publish. And there we are. So my album of music, just in time for Bandcamp Friday, which is tomorrow, is this album. I've called it A Decent Harvest. Yes, I took the photograph. Yes, this is where I live. If you've ever watched the television series Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch, Martin Freeman, remember the one where the newspaper magnate was blackmailing people and the helicopter landed on the helipad outside is really futuristic house. House is about there, and there's the William Tyndale monument at North Nibley, which commemorates William Tyndale, who translated the Bible from Latin into English so that plebs could read it, and got burnt at the stake and drawn and quartered for good measure, because the church wanted to teach him a lesson, because people were reading the Bible and realising that it didn't say that they had to give most of their income to the church. So, yes, William Tyndale, burnt at the stake in the 1600s, 1500s, and commemorated by that little monument there, although it's actually quite big, and you can walk up the top of it. There are, I think it's 151 stairs, and the view out of the top is quite spectacular. But yeah, that's much later on in the year. Wheatfield, just the other side of the railway line, and so I decided to call it A Decent Harvest, because it's kind of been a decent harvest this month, or the last month since the 5090 The Prequel Challenge started on April the 4th. So there's 15 tracks, pay what you want, and that totally includes free. Mike Tango Charlie, who bought my entire discography last month, bless him, you definitely do not have to pay for this, so go grab it. There's a lot of stuff that I am really quite proud of on this track. Since playing a couple of the pieces on this live stream in previous weeks, I've gone back, I've buffed them up. In some cases, I've added another 4 lines of vocal harmonies, because I clearly do not know when to give up on some of these things. But there is an hour and 49 seconds worth of music this month for your delectation and delight. So please go off, check it out, stream it, download it. If you want to pay money for it, you are quite welcome to do so. It will help me fund a replacement for my Complete Audio 6, which I think it will probably irritate me to the point where I'm just going, no, I'm not using it anymore, which is a pain, because for the first 6 months that I used it, it was a lovely piece of kit, but it's just annoying me now, and I do not see why the CPU flag was kicking off as I was playing you this, when there's 15 tracks and there's only 2 tracks of synthesizer on it. And all right, yeah, I'm going fairly overboard on the effects processing, but I'm not going that overboard, surely. And I mean, I'm sitting here now streaming, and that is saying that my CPU is running at 40%. Wills Robbins says, we'll check it out tomorrow. We'll definitely pay something. That's most kind. If you do pay, then please do so between the hours of 8 a.m. tomorrow and 8 a.m. Saturday, because Bandcamp operate on Pacific time. So it's midnight to midnight Pacific time on Bandcamp is when they waive their revenue share, which means that they don't take I think it's about 10% that they normally take as a cut on transactions on any other day of the month other than Bandcamp Friday. But yeah, I'm at the point in my musical career where I'm not doing this to make money. I'm doing this because I love making music, and quite frankly, I'm got to the point where I think, you know what? I think what I'm doing is good enough to share with other people. And in sharing it with other people and getting their feedback and their comments, I learn how to do things better, and I learn how to do things that people respond to emotionally. Now, Mel was saying a lot about this yesterday on her stream, and yeah, Mel picked up that sounds melancholy, that there's a little bit of wistfulness and mournfulness in it. And yeah, that's maybe not an intentional vibe that I was going for, but I have got to the point in my playing now where I think that my emotional state comes through in the music that I write. And yeah, there are cases. Certainly there's a little triplet of songs that I've buried at the back there, Less Than Subtle, Obsequious and Epitaph, which is just me being grumpy. And quite frankly, the state of the world, the state of our government, the state of the country, I think totally justifies me being grumpy on some level. But I have been working very hard, very consciously, to not write that sort of music anymore, because what's it going to achieve? Right? It's just, oh, Chris is angry again. Yeah, but it's not going to change anything. So instead, what I've been working at, not entirely 100% of the time, is to actually make stuff that makes the world not suck quite as bad as it does at present. And yeah, if you can get some solace from this stuff, or even a grin or two, then I will consider my time well spent. And that's about it for this evening. So thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for listening and commenting to the slew of music that I have been producing this week. It's been a good week, I think. In terms of my mental state, I think I'm a little bit better off than I was this time last week. And yeah, I said on Sunday that my buddy Paul has retired, and with lockdown being not quite as bad as it has been back in February, I'm meeting him for a pint tomorrow, which will be splendid, because I think that's the first time I will have been to a local hostelry for a pint since about September, I think. And quite frankly, it's about bloody time I got down to the pub. So that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow afternoon. Boo, we can't do anything here yet, says Ryako Music. Give it time. It'll happen. I'm still waiting for my second shot, but that's in less than a month now. And yeah, the daily rate of fatalities in this country is now down into single figures, which is quite extraordinary given that it was in 4 figures back in January, and things back in January looked very bleak. But the vaccine rollout seems to be working, and hopefully that will continue. Right, Tango Charlie says, and the Lord did grin, and there was much rejoicing, and they feasted on the stoats and the weasels and the orangutans. See, I'm almost doing that in Michael Palin's voice. And yes, Wills Robin says, we are allowed to drink next week, I think. Well, have a pint for me, sir. So yes, I will be back on Sunday with Write Another Song Show 6. And hopefully, if I am a little bit more robust by Sunday, then I will have another go at literally writing another song on camera. Mel was saying, oh, I can't do that, it's pressure. And it's like, yeah, I totally get that. I'm exactly the same. And particularly when it comes to sitting down and writing lyrics, which is a very internal thing. And it's very difficult to make entertaining streams out of something when you're just sitting there staring at a piece of paper. But I will have a bloody good go at it. So we'll see what happens. And I will be back next Thursday at 7:30 p.m. British Summertime for show number 52. Because next Thursday, week today, I will have been doing these damn shows for an entire year, and didn't see that one coming. So it's going to be an interesting week. It's going to be a fun week. Alcohol will be involved for the first time in quite a while, and I am told to drink lots of fluids, so that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. Whatever you're doing, please continue to obey social distancing rules. Please wear a mask, because COVID is airborne, and wearing a mask really does cut down the infection rate and the transmission rate, and it's important to continue to do this even if people are being vaccinated. So, wherever you are, stay well, stay safe, stay sane, and stay Wayne. And I will see you on Sunday night. And as Ryako says, I'm off to booze it up.